All right, well, welcome to The Breakdown. Super excited to be here with Jordan Connor King and myself, Shane Isler. This has been a long time coming, and through all the hype, we're excited to kick things off. So, Jordan, happy to have you here. Jordan is going to be co-host with myself in the podcast, and we've got a lot to talk about. You ready to rock?
Yes, sir. Let's get going.
All right. Well, what I thought would be a really good place to start for this would just be to talk a little bit about who this podcast is for. This is episode number 1, and the way that I envision this, at least, is that this is something where if you're just getting into the podcast, we can reference back to episode 1, and you just always get an idea of what this is about. So when Jordan and I were putting this podcast together, and I know that he can attest to this, there's kind of 3 main people that this is for. The first one is going to be people that are aspiring to get into business, and we've all been there. No one got started in life and opened a business on day one. So
Yep.
It starts as a dream and it turns into reality. The second type of person that this is for is someone that's in business, but is maybe getting started. Someone that's just learning. They've got a lot of rocks to trip over and a lot of bumps and bruises to go. And there's also that type of person that's just absolutely crushing it. And I guess the moral of this is that this podcast isn't for one specific type of person. It's for anyone. And whether you're in business, whether you're the hairdresser or the mom or the professor at University of Ottawa or anywhere in between, we want you to be able to listen to this podcast and to take something away from it. We're people, you're people. There's nothing fancy here. But really, I guess where the mission comes from and the whole, I guess, background of this podcast is that we want to provide business lessons without the scar. And the whole idea behind where that comes from is that people mess up, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's part of what life is. But the way I see it, there's kind of 2 ways to learn. You can either learn yourself with time, and you pay the cost of time. Some people take a lot longer to learn lessons than others, and those cost more. There's also people that spend with money and investments, and those are the people that don't use time, they use currency, but they advance a lot faster. Now, the best thing about this podcast is that anyone who's listening right now, this is free, right? We're not charging anything. We don't have anything to ask. There's nothing to sell you. We're here just to provide value, and this is going to be the content that, in my opinion, I've always wanted to hear. There's a lot of content out there, and there are a lot of people that I look up to in many ways. But this is going to be the exact stuff, the soundboard, the corkboard, the dartboard, whatever you want to call it, for us to be able to bring ideas to the table, things that are actually happening. I myself am 23, and Jordan, you're 24, 23?
Yes, sir. 24.
24, right? So it's the oldest you've ever been, which is great. But we're in a place where we're learning, we're growing, and we're not perfect, right? So I guess really what our goal is here, we did some research before starting, and what Jordan and I found out is that, you only have to put out 21 podcasts to be in the top 1%, which I think is absolutely crazy. And part of what fired me up, and Jordan, I'd be curious to hear you test to this, but we were sitting in a Starbucks and we figured this out, and we brainstormed a list of 50 people, 60 people? Do you remember how many that was?
At least near 100, because we just have so many relationships in that business world, and we're also just excited to share it. We've kind of, started our little momentum in business. At first, me and Shane, I'm sure, didn't have nothing. Shane is a little more in the sales background, running some sales teams. Me was a bit more in the music industry and production industry. Mm-hmm. And then we met through one of our mentors, and it was like, oh, damn, ding, ding, ding. We have so many relationships. Why don't we show other people what we've got? We're already young. Let's start to flex these relationships that we have, basically. So
100%. And 100 is just getting started, right? So one of the things I'll say without getting into the weeds is that I'm super fired up for all the people we don't know we're going to meet yet.
100%.
There are so many great people in your network and mine, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about where this idea came from. So if you want to go into that.
Yeah, so I can just give a little bit of background on honestly how we met, because I think that's really interesting. And so early on, when I was starting my entrepreneurship kind of journey, and I met 2 of my mentors, 2 of my first mentors I ever met, which was Malcolm Sinclair Park. He runs a magazine in Ottawa called Living Well, Living Green, and he also runs a media company called Sinclair Media Solutions. And I went to shadow him, B2B sales. And then I got to meet Richard in his backyard. I was working blue collar, and he had a lot of experience in the technology sales field. And they started bringing me to events. Honestly, I didn't have that much money. They started paying for my events, and really? I was super grateful for that. And one of the events I went to at Thai Ottawa, I'll give a shout out to Thai Ottawa, such a great event. I met Talib, and Talib has been one of my most pivotal mentors as well. Really early on, just a super big driver of my motivation. And I just wanted to prove to these mentors, like, you're not pouring into me for nothing. I'm going to come back and provide you guys value. I can't right now. I don't understand business enough. You guys are, so here in business, but I'm going to get to where you are. And they believe in me to get there. And then after meeting for coffee with Talib for the first time, he said, I need to introduce you to a guy. I think you guys are really gonna click up here. And sure enough, he introduced me to Shane. And after we met, I think at a bar, we just met with Talib. Yeah.
Shout out
and
Ottawa.
I'm pretty sure after that night we connected, and sure enough, like, we started, tapping into each other. And I was kind of running some private breakfast and coffee meetings, and so I think it was maybe a few days, like the week after, I was like, Shane, man, you need to come. I've got some of my most important business partners coming together. Please come. He showed up. And then sure enough, after that, he was like, oh, this entrepreneurship world that you're in, this is cool as well. Because Shane is a little bit more in the BD side of things, I guess. And like in that corporate, you've seen a lot more inside these bigger companies. But for me, I've really been in the mud looking for the top youth entrepreneurs in Ottawa. And then Shane, sure enough, like, clicked perfectly with us because we're all kind of seeking the same things. We all have that same hunger. It's just in a little bit two different fields. And so,
yeah, no, that was good. And I remember the buzz, like, being in that second cup or whatever it was.
I still have the photos from that.
Which was cool. And I think we came to meet for like 45 minutes and like 2.5 hours. I'm like, boys, I got to go. So that was talking. Yeah. That was good. And then we left and then talked another half hour in the parking lot. So it's like it was like a great first date with a bunch of entrepreneurs. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Beautiful. Jordan, I think this would be a great place. I know you've hinted on your story a little bit, but it would be really cool, as I guess, for our guests to know where you came from, what your background is, who you are as a person. I'd love to hear, I guess, where it started. And this is probably some stuff I don't even know yet. So I'm curious to see what you have to say.
Yeah, and then I guess we'll get into you after. But
100%.
Basically, I started out as an artist. A lot of people knew me as J King. And so my first name is Jordan. My last name is King. Kind of an easy little play on words there. I mean, Jermaine Cole, J. Cole, everyone knows. So I also got some inspiration off that. And when I was like 17 or 18, I just started posting music. And I got some good buzz from it. I got some great feedback. And so, that was like pinging videographers together, pinging editors together, starting these little projects, meeting producers. It just kind of got me really hungry, but I didn't really think it would contribute to business. I didn't see myself in business. I just saw myself purely as an artist, and that's where I thought, I'll be a famous rapper, I'll be a famous artist, I'm going that direction. Okay, awesome. And then, sure enough, you do music long enough, you're like, okay, this is really difficult. This is not easy at all. And then also, if you do any research, like, you realize streams are worth pennies nowadays. And in order to actually be a profitable artist, usually you need a budget to start and going to do stuff. So once my savings were drained, I was like, oh man, I need to find a job. Cause what am I doing as an artist right now? And so I had pivoted into being more of a manager and an agent. I was like, I think I play, a better leadership role. I don't really like being in front of the camera. I don't like doing concerts as much as I thought I would. And it kind of drained the fun of music for me. And so I just took a step back and I was like, let me do it for other people. Let me help other people with their marketing campaigns and see where that goes. And so that's really what kicked me off, was my catalyst to like, oh, I'm good at projects. I'm good at bringing people together. I'm good at giving direction. Okay, that's a lot for me to go off of. And then I kind of just stopped doing that all around for a bit, and then got into a few blue collar jobs, just looked for 9-to-5s. I thought, okay, you know what? Ottawa is not the best city to find really like even small time artists that are willing to put money into it. We're just not that big of a music city, unfortunately. We've had some great big artists break out, but in terms of people like small, medium, actually being able to afford a manager and agent, that doesn't exist here. So I quickly went out of business with that. And then actually one of the huge catalysts is I was with a girlfriend for 3 years, and then she had left. And so I was just seeking something new, right? I'm like, okay, I lived with her for 3 years. Honestly, what do I want out of life? What am I really looking for? And that's when they say, when the student is ready, the mentor appears. I love that quote, because I ran into Malcolm at a family friend's citizenship party. I'm having a beer. Yeah, we met at a party, and it was just like, wow, I met a mentor at a party. Sure enough, like I quickly grabbed his number. I'm like, okay, I need to stay connected with this guy because he's got access to a world I haven't seen before. And I was, he sparked something in me. I'm like, ooh, okay, I need to stay close to this guy. He's willing to pour into me. I grabbed his number. 2 weeks later, at my blue collar job, I was working interlock. I was working like landscaping in Richard's backyard, who's now, a really close friend of mine. We've met for breakfast 100 times. We've helped each other with business deals. We've helped each other, go over business ideas all the time. And we got into a conversation in his backyard about role models. What do young males need to succeed? And I pinged it. I said, role models. And Richard, he looked at me and said, that's it, Jordan. You got it. That's what it is. That's what we need. And so a light bulb went off in my head and I was thinking, okay, I need to get this guy's number. I need to get this guy's business. So I walked right up to him after that conversation ends, pull up my phone. I'm like, okay, so what's your business? Let me search it up. Okay, what's your email kind of thing? Like, just to make sure you got his information. And then as a joke, the last thing I said, because obviously I didn't want to be disrespectful to our client, at the landscaping company, because it's kind of rude to just ask for someone's number. But I pitched the joke. I said, oh, I was going to take your number down, but like I didn't want to intrude. And sure enough, he was like, oh yeah, just take my number, bro, whatever. I was like, sweet. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh yes, let's go.
Just what I wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, let me just nudge my way in here because that also has to do with like my book I want to release, which is going to be called Infiltrate and Integrate. And that's what I did. I infiltrated. He gave me the access and then I integrated and now he's my close friend. And sure enough, I pinged him on a text and I said, wow, what a great conversation. Thanks for getting me fired up about business. I'm looking to get into this world. Next thing he texts me is, let's go for coffee. Boom. And that's really where I started. Then a week or two after I met Richard for the first time and I met Malcolm for the first time, I actually brought them into a meeting all together, Malcolm, Richard, me, and my close friend and my business partner, Dazol. And after that meeting, oh man, me and Dazol were just fired off. That's where we realized we are so close to success. We are way closer to opportunity than we thought. There is mentors just sitting in the grass waiting to be plucked. Like low-hanging fruit is literally everywhere. And that's where my business addiction started, basically. I have not been able to barely stop thinking about business for like more than 5 minutes since that happened.
Yeah. And just to cut it, it's so funny. When I met Jordan, he's like, dude, I don't know what happened. I work like 7 days a week. Like I wake up, I work, and then I'm on my phone. I fall asleep working. Like, dude, how do you manage that? Cause like, I just couldn't believe it. So.
Yeah, no, it became an addiction. And definitely like, you need to have a healthy work-life balance, which is, it's hitting me hard now. But for a long time, I just was so wanting to prove to my mentors that I'm something as well that I couldn't stop working 7 days a week, honestly, going to events as much as I could. So
that's cool.
Let's hear some background on you though, brother. Let's get into your story a little bit.
Yeah. It's so funny. I just went through the process and I mean, we're 2024 right now in late spring and left my previous job and I had the glorious experience of going through interviews and I've had a chance to share my personal story a lot. The job market's a little tough right now and set up with a really great company called Convergence Product Design out in Arnprior. So fired up first week right now. But I guess just to rewind, so I grew up in a really small town and I was always kind of the black sheep of my family. And the more that I look back on it now, the more I realize I think I was kind of always destined for sales. I remember crushing it at the Scholastic book drives or whatever, where you sell stupid stuff. And then I was on a competitive swim team. And so we always did fundraisers and collected bottles and built interpersonal skills and did some coaching there as well. And we sold bacon like in these big boxes and it was just so many weird things, right? And I mean, really my first sales pitch was to my parents in grade 6 because I was a bit of a heavier kid and I looked up the hardest sports so I could lose some weight. I was pretty self-conscious and long story short, it was swimming. And so my friend at the time got me into that and it was a tough pitch because, even to play baseball, we didn't really come from much. So to go into a sport like swimming is very expensive. Took a lot of coaxing and went to my school guidance counselor to see if we qualified for the school to pay for it and we didn't. And long story short, I closed the deal and got set up for swimming, and that was the major part of my life through junior high and university, or junior high and high school, I suppose. And I faced a really tough challenge when I was deciding what to do with my life. You know, you graduate and you're kind of forced into this place where you have to make a decision. Yeah. And for me, it was, do I go down this rank of sports or do I pursue something in the education? And that's something that I've always valued. It's not something I think everyone needs, but I wasn't going for a PhD. I wanted to go into massage therapy. And so that's what I did. You know, the university I went to didn't have a swim team. Shout out Mount Royal in Calgary. Loved the school, great 2 years, accelerated program, and 2,200 hours, learned a lot, met some really, really great people. And it was convenient enough that I graduated, got started in my career, and COVID happened. And so, you know, people went through a lot more challenges than I did in that time. But the short story is that through university, because I had no bank of mom and dad, I had no extra funds, everything that I was doing was paid for by me. Yeah. And so as soon as I moved to Calgary, I had, I guess, about a month of latency to get my feet on the ground. And then I had to find a job. And finding a job without experience, I was from a small town. I tried handing out resumes and about 20 companies laughed at me and they said, submit it online. I'm like, well, shit, that's not very nice. And so I was sitting there sad in the school food court and I looked over to see a table that said part-time student work. And I was like, oh, I should check that out. I like part-time student work. And it ended up being a sales job. And, you know, I was nervous. In my mind, I had never sold anything before. My perspective has changed. But that's really what got my kickstart into sales. And I did incredibly well. I worked part-time and did things around my classes. That first Christmas, I went home and I had the biggest week out of anyone in the entire office. And I really proved to myself that I could do this thing. I had a lot of doubt. And I did well. I advanced through the ranks of assistant manager. I did leadership training. I flew all over Canada to do these events and conferences. And, you know, I learned a lot. And it was great. But, you know, my passion was to go into massage therapy. And COVID, I guess, was the slap in the face for me. So when that happened, so many great ties to where I work, they reached back out to me. And they said, hey, you went through all this leadership training. You were one of our top people. Why don't you come run a sales team? You've been through all the training. I know you don't have work right now. Everyone's stuck indoors. And they laid it out for me. It made sense. And so I opened a sales team. I ran the sales team in Airdrie. It was a branch office, so it was just for the summer. And we crushed it. You know, we were number 2 office in our new category for the whole country. And we did so well that they said, where do you want to go next? And I picked the biggest open territory in Canada, which at the time was Ottawa, Ontario. And so made the move out here in 2020, got myself situated, ran the team, learned a lot, decided to step away from management. So kind of opposite story of you.
Yeah. Was this with Cutco?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
No, exactly.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I guess to tie the knot in this story, I went back into selling, worked a lot of trade shows, corporate events, business gift type sales, and met someone else who introduced me to someone that started me in a corporate tech job. Did well there. Advanced through the ranks, and then that's where I left from to then start at Convergence here. So that's a bit of my story. I mean, I'm a middle kid, you know, rode dirt bikes and snowmobiles growing up, you know, about as Alberta redneck as there gets, and now I'm sitting here in a suit. So funny how things change, but fun fact about me, I used to ride horses. I could saddle up a horse and throw a hay bale, and it's a bit different than the personality that I have now. I mean, today I rock climb, I hike, anything to do with outdoors, but that's pretty much me. And I know I wrote down that I wanted to share a quote. So one of the quotes that I heard, I guess about a year ago, was that hard work beats talent every time. Yeah. And it's a bit of a spin-off on that Kevin Durant quote. But that's kind of what I've been living by. You know, I've been working hard, and I know you've been doing the same thing. And so that's, I guess, a bit of my story.
Yeah, I want to get into 2 things just to ricochet off what you're saying right there. I want to give a quote as well, and I also want to say, because I didn't really mention it, but I'm also from a super, super, super small town.
Like,
you know, a couple thousand people on an island, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Nova Scotia, I was born in Halifax, which is a bit bigger of a city, but I'm sure most of you guys know Peggy's Cove is pretty famous. Yep. But I was born in Halifax, but my entire family lives in Cape Breton, that little island on top of Nova Scotia. And I mean, everyone is a kilometer forest in between them. Everyone's got a little ruggedy old house. You know, my aunt lives in a little, her shed is almost bigger than her house. You know what I mean? She's got like a couple sheds in the back. And so that whole vibe of a small town, I think it does make you a bit more personable sometimes, because you care about your community a little more. And I don't think it's a coincidence that me and you both end up here, do so well in this corporate world, do so well in this relationship world, But really,
Yeah.
we're from such small towns at the end of the day. We're not from the city. And I think that's just an interesting reflection. And the other quote that I wanted to give, because I don't know, I actually looked it up and I couldn't find it. So if you guys can't find it, sorry, but I know for a fact that he did say this. Tony Robbins is always a big inspiration of mine. And I really encourage to do a bit of a deep dive on his story rather than just, look at some of his motivational speeches and be like, oh, this is kind of corny, because I really do recommend him highly. And one of the quotes that helped me get into this position today, become such a middleman, and provide so much business value for so many different people was, he said, provide the most value in every way possible. Mm-hmm. And so when you're providing value to directors, to CEOs, to anyone, to your friends, to quite literally anyone, you're not going to provide business value at first. You're going to provide mental health value. You're going to provide opportunity value. You're going to provide things that you can provide. And then later, once your network grows, once you understand business, then you'll start providing the business value. Mm-hmm. But just focus on providing value in any way, and then the business value will come later.
Even if it's friendship, right?
Exactly. 100%.
Good friends are hard to come by, right? So
agreed.
That's cool. Well, I know we want to give a shout out to the man behind the camera here.
Yeah.
And so I know Dazol is going to come on in just a second here.
Yeah.
But, I guess just a shout out for him is that, I guess the easiest way to describe this is that there's three of us working on this project.
Yeah.
And so it all started with just an idea in a coffee meeting, but there's kind of three people. And so we all hold our own unique value proposition in terms of this project. But you got Jordan and I, who are going to be the faces, the hosts, the front end of this podcast. And then the more important person, in my eyes at least, is everything else that happens behind the scenes. And whether that's the video editing, the page running, the brand kit that we've created for the breakdown, there are so many things. But Dazol is really the one that I think is going to be our glue. And I know that he's going to be someone that I wanted to make sure I shouted out today. And you're welcome to add some thoughts as well. But he is the person that I think is going to hold this together. And, we're the triad that makes the team, right?
No, 100%. Like Dazol, I'm going to wait till he's here maybe to get into our whole story 100%. And our whole spiel, because it's so fascinating how we met and pivoted into this relationship. But just to give a few key words on that guy, creative mastermind, creative director who's very strong, great background in videography, photography, editing, color grading, all these things that me and Shane are pretty foreign to. He steps in and he just knows all this stuff, like perfectly down the line. And that's where we're like, yes, please, we need you on this project. And we run a few other businesses together. And man, I've never met a greater operator. And so I do a lot of the relationship, a lot of the culture, a lot of the new business development that I bring in. But Dazol is my backbone for a lot of my projects. And honestly, I wouldn't have closed as many deals. I wouldn't be here today without him being my backbone as an operator, as someone who's once we get in the Zoom meetings, how do I provide value? How do I actually, do their website? That's where Dazol, we always say good cop, bad cop. So I'm good cop. And I'm bubbly. I bring them in. I'm their friend. I don't want to hurt their feelings. Oh, come join the Zoom meeting. And then it gets real when Dazol's on the meeting. Because that's the bad cop. Here's your quote. Here's what I'm doing. Here's how I'm providing value. And that, for us, that dynamic has just worked perfect. Yeah. And not a lot of people can even find a business partner like that so young. And so I really do feel privileged to have ran into him and just to have this ongoing synergy that we've built together. And now we run multiple companies together. And I'm sure that we'll be running companies together for another 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So. And on that note, this is a great time to say for all of the guests that are listening, you can tell that Jordan and I both care a lot about relationships. And if there's someone else that you care about and you think this is a podcast that's going to provide them value or it's provided you value, what we ask is that you pay this forward and share it with someone that you care about. There's going to be a lot of what we cover today and, put some good karma out there for someone else in business. The more that you can share this, the more it helps us. And because we're getting started, we're not running ads, we're not doing anything fancy. We're relying on you, our listeners, to share this. And I don't want you to share it if you didn't get value, but if you see this being something that is going to do something for someone else, pay the pass forward. So
I just really wanted to build on that too, because all of my mentors who have taught me everything I know about business, life, everything in general, I now understand why they've done it, because it's all a ricochet and a ripple effect. And same thing, why would Talib introduce us, right? He's going out of his way. He's closing deals that are huge. Why introduce 2 kids? You know what I mean? What value does that directly provide him? Zero.
Right.
But what value does it provide his community? Quite a lot, actually. Because now, look what we're doing. Now we're going to go run companies together. We're going to go start business together. We're going to introduce more people, and we're going to create more youth leaders. And so a lot of the mentors, they look in the distance, and that's why they connect, and that's why they pour into us. And so that ripple effect, that ricochet effect, we also encourage. If you get anything out of it, please do share it. And I'm so with you on that, Shane.
Yeah. And I mean, the level at which you measure time determines your success, right? So, the poor measure time in hours, when am I going to get off work?
Yeah.
The wealthy measure time in decades or centuries, right?
Well said.
Doesn't matter if you're Genghis Khan. There's very few people that remember you 100 years later. But at the same time, the more that you can do, you've got, 2 deaths, the death that you have in real life and the death of the last person, someone that says your name. So that being said, I know we had Dazel just pop in. So if you want to come and say a quick hello, I know we're just on the back end of things. We gave about 5 minutes to hype this guy up before.
Yeah, I know, right? Now you better have a sick intro now.
Yeah, of course. So hopefully you live up to the expectation.
Let me see if I can. Hi guys, so I'm the creative director of The Breakdown, and I take care of the back end, like the studio setup, mostly about the branding. So I won't be showing my face often to the camera, but I'm here today.
Yeah, beautiful. And before you came in, we were talking about you being the glue that holds us together, and Jordan and I get to be the pretty faces, but you're really the guy in the back end that does a lot. So we're super grateful to have you as the partnership, and I know we described that a bit, but
yeah, why don't you go into a little spiel about yourself, and then I just wanted to introduce how we met and stuff, and just like how we got into our partnership, because I did explain that we are business partners in a few ongoing projects, just so people can have some context, like, oh, how did you guys get connected with Dazel, and how did we meet, basically. But yeah, give your own little spiel quickly.
Okay, so I studied computer science and psychology back in university, and I got into photography and videography. And my first client was Jordan, actually. He was looking for someone to do his rap album, and I think your cousin Mike introduced me to Jordan, and that was like 7 or 8 years ago. And since then we clicked, and we did the music videos, a photo shoot all together. And then later down the road, I connect with Jordan. I was doing a website agency, and Jordan helped me to find clients and stuff. And about last year, we met in the ramen shop, and we talk about Senso Thai ramen shop, and we talked about a bunch of different ideas. And I thought it would be a great business opportunity if me and Jordan partnered up together and worked together. And after that, we formed KJNG, Kingjo Networking Group, where we focus on youth leadership, trying to group people who's into entrepreneurship or who already made the entrepreneurship, so we can form kind of like a war room, so that we all grow together. And now we've been working on a bunch of clients' work, and I met Shane through Jordan through this networking event, and now we're here.
Yeah. Full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah, which is cool. And it's it's going to turn into a lot more. So this is just the seed that grows, right?
Yeah. And I definitely think we'll get Dazel back on another episode to maybe go into another little bit of what's our AI company that we're doing? What is Kingjo Networking Group exactly, and how were we able to double, triple, quadruple our leverage as a team rather than one? Because when we were individuals, we were selling at a certain rate or a certain budget price, and then when we got together, we were able to leverage 3, 4, 5 times the price we were doing individually. And so I definitely, another time later, hopefully when we finish our 21 or our 10, we'll get this guy to pop back in for an episode, or maybe 100%. Jump in on an episode that one of me and Shane can't show up to, and we'll get a bit more into Dazel.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to highlight this guy.
That's perfect, because I wanted to talk about the AI company after that. We finish a meeting with the Kunal, so maybe I'll see you guys again in the next episode.
Beautiful. Well, and I think that segues into I guess the last thing, just to wrap up here, is that what can you look forward to? And when I think about this podcast, there is, in my mind, a lot to look forward to, but that's also within my own brain. And this is a podcast, so however you're listening, whether this is YouTube, a short, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you are, what I guess I want you to know is that I know you can't see inside my brain, but I want you to know that we look to provide an incredible amount of value, right? So just as Jordan said with that Tony Robbins quote, I think the more value that we can provide, the better. And just a snapshot, we've got some of the biggest, best, successful people in Ottawa through our networks. Yep. And as they expand into the outer world, there's, you know, more things that are happening and more guests that we're going to have. And our reach is only going to continue to grow. But whether it's, you know, some of the most successful, you know, females in their industry in construction,
yep.
You know, amazing networkers, whether it's, you know, someone just like us who is, you know, in a very similar place, but perhaps worth multi-millions of dollars. I know Dazel was talking about his friend earlier. So there's so many different things that I think are exciting. You can look forward to content that's going to be relatable. You know, we're here to be honest, and this isn't a, you know, a buttoned up podcast. There might be a swear, there might be a story, or, you know, whatever we need. We're just three guys talking on a podcast, right? And so at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's not rocket science, it's not serious, but I hope that what we're covering is beneficial for someone. Yeah. And if you're, again, that person that hears this and you connect, then share it. And that's really what our biggest ask is.
Yeah. No, and me, Dazel, and Shane have had the privilege of meeting quite a few sharks, we'll say. I'm sure everyone's on Shark Tank. They get that reference. Me and Dazel like to say sharks or whales sometimes, because how you evaluate that is, you know, we're really guppies. We are just starting out in business. We are a fraction of a fraction of a fraction compared to some of the guys we're working with. And they're sharks. They're whales. They have business knowledge that is funneling and has been, you know, a couple of decades of experience. And so that's what we're looking to bring here. And then not only that, but we've got some sharks who are close to our age, you know what I mean, who are a bit younger than us. And that's going to be really interesting. You know, how do these guys, how are they in their 20s, around our age, and they're already making $1 million? They've already done over $1 million in revenue, multimillionaires. And how did they do that so young? And so we're going to get some really, really interesting guests on for you guys.
Yeah, and that's going to be the exact stuff that people want to hear, right?
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to spend, this is ironic to say now, 40 minutes on our personal story, but what our episodes...
After we've given a stupid spiel, everyone like just clicked off already.
Anyways, if you're still listening, then
thank you.
You know, but realistically, we want to get into the hardwire of stuff, and stories are great. There's that emotional tie-in, but all the things that we wanted to hear on podcasts, which I'm sure many of our listeners do too, that's what we hope to cover. So these people that Jordan references, whether you call them sharks or entrepreneurs or successful people or the rich, the wealthy, whatever name you want to brand on them, they're people that have learned a lot of lessons we're yet to learn, and we hope to pass those forward. So,
okay, we'll give this guy a quick send-off.
Beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
All right, my friend. Thanks for being here. Well, to wrap up, I just want to thank you to all of our guests. And you know, I guess just some closing thoughts is that you know, I'm incredibly grateful to have you here. I'm excited for this journey. We're only just getting started, but we are happy to have you. We are fired up, and this is going to be something big.
Should we? How long have we been going?